Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I am honored to have Andy Adler with me. Andy is a sports enthusiast and a TV host and broadcaster. And one of the biggest takeaways I've had in her story and how she's been able to get to where she's at is with a big enough why, the how doesn't matter. So, Andy, thanks so much for being on today.
First of all, I love that introduction and I like the way you put that. It's great to talk to you, Phil.
Yes. So to talk a little bit about your younger years, talk a little bit about your family, your parents, and also just the fact that English was not the predominant language or the first language that you learned growing up.
Yeah, it's people are always surprised by that. So I grew up in San Diego and my first language was Spanish. So it's weird to think about it because my teachers used to call my mom and be like, you have to speak to her in English because she doesn't know what is going on in class. And now I'm thankful to my parents for speaking to me in Spanish because I speak it fluently, and they wanted that to be the case.
Yeah.
But I could still remember. I can remember Mrs. Russell. I can remember her speaking. I can like I know that sounds wild, but I can just remember being like, I understand some of that. Like not really. I don't. I have a vivid memory. But yeah, you're right. I didn't learn English until later.
So I think growing up, we all have certain ideas or aspirations of what we would like to do. For you, did you have a childhood passion or desire to someday be on camera, whether that was a movie star or in TV? Or what growing up, what was something that you were super passionate about?
you know, being a movie star was never of interest to me. I can honestly say, like, I never wanted to be famous. Like, that was never like the goal.
Yeah.
Um, okay. This is weird to talk about. I was probably 9 years old, Phil, and I was a weird kid, makes for a weird adult. Um, I mean, what can I say? And I was watching the news, and there was this woman named Kimberly Hunt. Again, like vivid memory, and she's like this, like she's doing the news. And by the way, she still is there and like still killing it. And my mom goes, "You could do that."
Mm,
And I just remember being like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Like yeah, I want to do that. And it was just in my head at a really, really early age. And sports was just always part of my family. So
yeah.
I got two brothers. My mom is a major sports fan. My dad lives and breathes baseball. Like everything is like in a sports metaphor growing up. So the combination came together. And I think it really does start with a thought. And my mom put that in my head really, really early on.
Yeah. So I want to highlight that, we're talking about it in the context of a parent telling a child in your career, but I also think, you know, having someone that believes in you or your ability to do it, right? Like you said, planting the seed, even before I think it's possible, is powerful. So talk a little bit about that for, anyone that's listening that maybe has doubts about something they would like to do. If someone has maybe planted that seed and just pursuing what the possibilities are.
I think that's so huge. And I think it's so easy for people to say what you can't do.
Mm,
And and I've heard that a lot.
yeah.
I've heard it a lot, and I think we all have. But I think that's dangerous
Mm,
because when you have limitations put on you, whether it's as a child or, I mean, gosh, even as an adult,
yeah.
um, and yeah, my mom has always been that person who's been like, just do it. Just, there's no limitations. And, I'm really lucky to have that. And there's this one quote, and I'm going to absolutely butcher it, but I'm gonna absolutely butcher this right now. But Mark Twain says something to the effect of, you know, keep away from small-minded people because they will make you limit your goals, The great people make you feel like you too could be great.
Wow.
Again, butchered that one. Sorry, Mr. Twain. But like I do really pay attention to that, because I feel like it is true. It starts with someone believing in you. And it's a powerful thing.
Yes. Now, as you're growing up and progressing through school, you're excelling in a lot of different ways, and that gets you, your hard work gets you the opportunity to attend Stanford. So, talk a little bit about deciding to go to Stanford. And I mean, once again, that's a very, prestigious university. So, talk about just, making that decision and then showing up on campus.
I had the best time at school, and I didn't expect that, because look, I worked really hard in high school. I
Yeah.
worked really, really hard, and I was a nerd then, a nerd now, like always will be. And so I didn't really know what to expect with school.
Yeah.
I thought it might be like more of that, like more of just working the whole time. And what it ended up being was not at all what I expected, which is it was the best education, but not just in the classroom, but from the
Yeah.
friends like I met, and they're still my closest friends. I learned a lot from the people I was around, and I feel like that was a situation, sort of going back to that, like thinking big, and thinking there, because I was around all these people who were doing these amazing things, um and it was humbling, but at the same time exciting. And that's when I was like, I like this is cool. This is cool. So school was a lot of fun, and life altering, honestly.
Yeah. Now, something I'm always curious about is the way that people are brought up, right? And I think some parents have a way of placing high expectations on their children, and some parents don't. But talk a little bit about, your upbringing and, maybe some parental influence on your goals to aspire to be able to go to a Stanford University.
So weird, because my parents didn't put
No.
any pressure on me. And I mean zero pressure. I think they knew that I put enough for the like three of us, right?
Yeah.
Like they knew that like I didn't need that, and that it might not work in the right direction, because they knew it had to come from me. They never put pressure on it. It was it was one of those things where it was, be happy, do what makes you happy. And I again, a nerd, and I was naturally that. And but I can remember my mom being like, like go play tennis, like enough, put the books down, like go play. So so no, there wasn't any pressure. And they still don't look at they look at accomplishments differently than I
Yeah.
think the parents do. I think accomplishments are you content? Are you feeling like you're fulfilling what you want to fulfill? And you're giving the thumbs up right now, and I'm like, that's the goal, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can think of so many people who are high achieving people who are like not that happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
And so they no, there was never any of that pressure at all, which
Well,
is
I
weird.
Yeah, no, I think you make a phenomenal point though. I think so frequently and so often, um, as cliche as of a term as it is today, is people focus on the end result, but they don't focus on all the things they're gaining in process of accomplishing that end result, right?
Mhm.
And if you're only doing things to reach this pinnacle of success,
Mhm.
you're going to constantly feel unfulfilled because The second you achieve that goal, most people that are high achievers say, oh, well, now that I hit this goal, I'm already on to the next one, right? So, yeah, that was really cool for this brief 10 seconds of time. But now my mind races to, well, what else is possible? So, if you truly are only doing something for the end result, I think it can lead to your point, a very unfulfilled lifestyle.
That's absolutely right, and I think, I'm still working on that. What can I say? I think that's, uh, in theory, I like those words. I try and live by that. Sometimes it's not as easy to enjoy whatever, as they say, totally cliche, enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Um, I need to remind myself of that sometimes because it can get, um, you're going through it. Let's go. And I like that. I like the let's go. But sometimes it takes a minute to just be like, okay, this is cool.
Ye-
Enjoy this.
Yes. Now, Andy, I can't imagine there's too many people that started their careers at 20 years old. I would have to guess that you are an anomaly in that regard. But the other thing that was surprising to me and interesting to learn in your journey was as you're at Stanford, you have the opportunity to graduate early, which I would imagine, once again, not many people do. But instead of graduating early, you get an internship out at the David Letterman show in New York. So, talk about how the Letterman show came to be and, what the encouragement was to go pursue
Bill, you've done your homework and you're really good at this, by the way.
that.
I'm not used to being on this side of an interview, and a lot more comfortable being on your side of it. But yeah, I had an opportunity to be an intern at the Late Show with David Letterman. And that was really interesting because
Yeah.
I was living in New York, and I was just it was it was a whole new land. It was
Yeah.
a whole new land. And I was around, Dave is Dave. I talk about Dave like if Dave and I are like this, we're tight. No, I would be surprised if he has any recollection of who I am. But certainly phenomenal at what he does.
Yeah.
And just watching it live in person every night and seeing how he does do the interviews and how he does um, do his job on a daily basis, and also just being around the whole production in itself. I thought it was great. And then I went back to college and I was like, yeah, school's fun. Can I stay
Yeah.
forever? Work is, but but it was an incredible experience. It really was. And again, some of those people who I worked with or worked for are still really good friends, and it's wild how it works out.
Yeah, well, and I want to highlight that because I think in your industry specifically, but certainly in many industries for people that are listening, having a connection, but even more importantly, developing a relationship is so important to doors and opportunities that can present themselves. So, if you were, talking to a listener right now, what would your encouragement be to somebody that is maybe getting started or they've been pursuing their industry for a little bit of time, but really haven't been able to connect with somebody in their industry to learn and be able to grow from them?
I would say be fearless.
Mm,
Um, I would say you be prepared to hear no a lot, and be prepared to hear no a lot. Um, I think be dumb, for lack of a better term, be dumb enough to feel like anything is possible,
yeah.
but smart enough to know how much you don't know,
Mm,
right? There's
yeah.
this combination of being overly confident that can be detrimental.
Yeah.
Um, but to aspire to learn and come from a place of okay, I'm here to get take the gloves off and get
Yeah.
dirty, because it's anything worth having, again, super cliche, but anything worth having is not going to come super simple unless like it's just not. And I can remember a lot of stories of people saying to me, yeah, you know what, we're looking like, cut your hair, like do it this way, be this person, and then we'll talk. And I just
Yeah.
remember, I'm not going to be real good at that. Like, that's not, like, other people could be that person and do it better. So I would also say, do it your way and do it with everything you've got. And that's, I mean, again, to talk about my mom, and that is something that she put in my head very early. If you're going to do something, do it your way and do it with everything you have.
Now, I mean, to talk into that, right? I'm sitting here and I'm, the listener, and I'm wondering, all right, well, when am I coachable and when am I sticking true to myself? Right. I think that is a dynamic that people can get into is, well, somebody, that's had success is giving me this feedback, but I don't feel like it is true to myself to take their feedback, even though it's worked for them. So, what's the balancing act there? Because once again, I'm sure over the course of your career, there's been multiple people that have given you a lot of feedback, and some of it, you process and you say, hey, that actually is really good feedback for me, and that will
Mhm.
make me better. And some of it, it's like, well, that might work for you, but I don't know that it works for me. So what's kind of the balancing act, or how do you funnel through those different thoughts and opinions?
If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. I think that people, you can get analytical about it. You can
Yeah.
get your head into it. If you're doing something, it really is that simple. If you're
Yeah.
doing something and it feels wrong, stop.
Mhm.
Stop and think about why you're doing it and why it feels wrong. Um, but I do think it can get like you can overcomplicate it for sure,
Yeah.
and think, okay, well, it worked for this person. Look at the success this person had doing it this way. But it's gut and intuition. The best decisions I've ever made have been based solely on that, on the gut, on the feeling of, okay, yeah, let's just do this.
Yeah.
The not so good decisions have been more of a on paper,
Mm.
this is probably what I should do. This is what I'm being advised to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like when you're doing that and you're doing okay, in the moment that it's not quite right. Like,
Mm.
to go to the name of your podcast, which is, it's a great concept and name, um, in that moment, like, what you're doing doesn't feel right, and you got to
Mm.
listen to that. Um I think that's simple as that, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So to tie back into your story, you get the opportunity and you head out to New York. You're with Dave Letterman. You come back to school, and after we graduate, I think everyone aspires to get. Well, not everyone. I shouldn't say that. A lot of people that love sports aspire to get into being able to cover the big sports, right? The major sports shows, the major interviews with the star athletes. So, talk about your trajectory in your career and how you end up getting into the sports world.
So, let's see. So it was at my graduation at school. I didn't really, I mean, I didn't know how I was going to break into this industry. Like, I didn't know, not a soul in this industry. I just was, um, but throughout college, I was calling, a news director in Monterey, California for the NBC affiliate. His name is Lawton Dodd. What's up, Lawton? Um, and I would call him on the weekly, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
Lawton, like, when are you gonna hire me? Like, like, let's go. And he's like, I just don't have anything right now. And I would, I just kept, kept pursuing. I remember the first email that I sent, he thought a guy was going to show up for the sports position, right? Like, I like this email coming from me, and they were, Andy Adler, like, he's expecting a dude, and he got me. And I remember auditioning, and I would keep pursuing it. And then there was graduation came, and there was a man who spoke at my graduation in the journalism department. His name was Ty Kim, and I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, this is my dream. You work at NBC. Like, how do I like this? Like you're in the news department. How do I get my foot in?" And he said, "Well, people sometimes start in the page department." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I applied to the page program, which is, if y'all don't know what that is, I don't know if you've seen the show 30 Rock. Have you seen that, Phil?
Yeah, yeah.
You know Kenneth from 30 Rock with like, he wears like a tie and like a suit, but like it's like a peacock tie, and like he gives tours and stuff.
Yep.
That was me. Like I would give tours. Like I could walk backwards, and like I wore a tie, like, and like I, of course, I spiffied it up with like but like
Yeah.
yeah, like so that's how that was my first step in a studio. I was giving tours, I was doing all the things that pages do. And then I would just keep calling Lawton. And you know, I call it stalking, whatever you want to call it. Like I would call him all the time and say, "Ready? Like when are we gonna do this?" Like, and I remember where I was, and he's like, I was like, "So, hey, how's it going, Lon?" Like, I have to get through him to, like, he had like an assistant. And I was like, our like kind of like, I was like, "So, how's it going?" Like, and he's like, "It's going well. So do you want to start in a couple weeks?" And I go, What?" Like, I just remember being like, "Wait," I just remember sitting on my bed. I'm like, yeah, like, yeah, let's do that." And I was trying to keep my cool, and I did not do that. And I was so excited. And he's like, "It's for you're going to be a news reporter doing hard news. When can you start? Doesn't pay much." And by much, I mean, yes, I had to get a side job.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." So I gave my notice to the Page program. And again, and it's funny, in the Page program, I met one of my dear friends, Gina Anderson, still one of, I'm sure all these people are like, "Why are you saying my name? Stop doing that." But she's still one of my dear friends. We met in the Page program. And then I started in Monterey, California. And I was there for 2 years. And this is like, this is not even the Cliff Notes version. You're probably like, "Okay, let's speed this up."
No.
From there, from that job, I started working for a show called American Latino TV. And then I also worked for CBS in Palm Springs. It would go full circle with CBS, because actually my very first job was as an intern for the CBS sports department during college. So CBS would go full circle, which is where I'm at now. And pretty wonderful that it goes full circle like that. So yeah, Palm Springs, and simultaneously doing the show that was syndicated nationally called American Latino TV, hosting
Yeah.
that. And that was, and so working both those jobs. And then I got the opportunity in New York for Channel 5.
So
And no, please go ahead.
no,
I
no,
feel like I'm having to talk this
no, you're
much.
good. So I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, okay, I've called this guy multiple times and he keeps telling me, someday, someday, someday.
Mhm.
Why keep going? Right? Like, I mean, hey, it's one thing to be told, someday a couple of times. It's another thing. I'm calling you week after week and you keep telling me the same thing, but I don't see any changes. What about Andy and the resilience factor within you keeps going? What about the grit within you keeps going?
Another phrase I'll butcher, but 5 feet from gold. I don't know if it's 5 feet from gold or 500 feet from gold, but like you've got to believe there's like some gold and that's close by, right?
Yeah.
And if it feels, and it never felt wrong calling
Mm.
luck. Like it didn't feel, trust me, like if like if Lon was like, "You gotta stop calling," like, this is like I wouldn't have kept doing it.
Yes.
Um, I just, when I had visited the station and I was like, "Yeah, this is someone who I feel like I could grow here for a couple years." It felt right. It just
Yeah.
felt right. And I think that's really that's that's the answer. It felt like there was some gold there. Unfortunately, not literally, because I was like trying to figure out like,
I'm still working my part-time job. I didn't find gold.
there was no gold there, but there was a different kind of gold, and it was maybe the best kind.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine in your industry, once again, I've never worked in TV. I would imagine there's some people that are willing to help you, give you advice, be maybe a mentor. I'm also guessing, similar to like pro sports, there's a lot of people that you're a threat, right? Because if you get the role, I don't keep my job, or if you get the role, then I don't get the role. Talk a little bit about finding, your circle or your peer group that helped encourage you and keep you motivated, even though there might be some competition going on.
Yeah, I feel like I've been really lucky in that the people that I've worked with have been pretty great. And sure, it would be silly for me to think otherwise. It is a competitive industry.
Yeah,
Um, I am very competitive, but with myself, right?
yeah,
So I think that the outside stuff, like I can't control it. And I
mm,
feel like when you can't control something, I just try and stay in what I can control. And
yep,
so I think it's easy to get a little bit muddled down with the nonsense. But I feel like if you kind of stay on your own track and race your own race, everyone can, there's plenty of opportunities for everyone, is the way I like to think about things. Um, yeah.
that's good. Now, before I cut you off, you were talking about the transition to New York, and New York is really where the sports part of your job gets to the peak. So, talk a little bit about the progression through your time in New York.
So when I went to New York, when I first got there, I was like a kid, right? Like I really was. I mean, I'm thinking about it, I was like, wow, I was a kid working in a big market in a
Yeah,
and doing a non-kid job. And when I first got there, it was a freelance job. Freelance, in other words, like they would let you know if you were coming back. I passed on a really wonderful opportunity to take a job, to take
yeah,
that job and take it one day, like 1 week at a time. The other job was a contract job. This was not. And I felt like I gotta bet on myself here. And I did. And they bet on me, right? Like
yeah,
that station, and I won't name any more names because they're probably gonna like stop doing that. But they bet on me, and I'm really grateful for that. And um, I was working mornings and nights and whenever they wanted it. And remember, the Giants got hot that year, as in real hot. We were talking about the 2007, 2008 season. And I got to, I got to cover the Super Bowl from
yeah,
Arizona. And I did all the playoff games and on the frozen tundra. I'll remember that one. I remember being like, this is different kind of cold. Like I'm from California, like we don't do this here. But it was one of the best moments. I mean, really one of the best moments of my life, because I just remember being like, this is surreal. Like
yeah,
this is what you call football weather. And no, I think it was a transition.
yeah,
But it was pretty it was pretty great. Like it was pretty great, and it wasn't as scary as it sounds as I talked about it, because I felt like New Yorkers were really welcoming to me.
yeah.
And thanks, New Yorkers. You guys are you guys are the best. And yeah, I really felt I felt home.
Yeah. Now you and I have a little bone to pick here. So I'm a diehard Packer fan. So that frozen tundra game, yeah, was not overly enjoyable. But I also had David Tyree on the show, and we hashed out the
Mm.
issues we had together. And so I've forgiven the Giants. I've moved on, and I'm just really happy that they ended up winning. That was great.
That must have been a great interview. David is a phenomenal guy. And
Yes.
he really, there's a lot of layers there. So I'm going to listen to that podcast. I'm really curious to hear that. I bet that's a great interview.
Yeah, it's always fun when you get to connect with people who, have really excelled in their profession, but then they end up actually being even better people than they are professionals. Uh, doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, you're very appreciative of those connections. So
Yeah, Brett Favre, that was supposed to be his last game. As a Packers fan, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, really, that was
I'm gonna be honest with you.
yeah.
I'm not as hurt as many Packers fans were on Brett's antics in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
Hey, he was a legend. Without him, we wouldn't have been, the program, the team that they were. So it's like I don't have as much resentment, but there were a lot of Packer fans that held on to the bitterness and resentment towards Brett, and I think still do. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yes, that was yes. We could talk all day. I'm not
yeah.
going to do that. I have so many follow-up questions, and I'm just going to. Okay. Okay.
Well, offline, you and I will go through that.
Deal.
Um,
Deal.
so not only did you get to cover the New York Giants and their pinnacle of success, but the Yankees have been a heck of a team for a long time, but you get to cover their World Series in '09. So talk a little bit about that and just the fun that it is to cover a team that is literally, excelling at the highest level in their profession.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it because there's a I call it the X factor. You go into the clubhouse, you go in the locker room, and whatever that little magical thing is, it's not about just like this crazy amount of talent, which by the way, the Yankees had. I mean, that was the year CC came,
Yeah.
Shara came. That was, I mean, AJ Burnett. They brought. I mean, it was wild. You got Jabba Chamberlain as I mean, it was, and then of course the core four, which was like Mariano and Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. And
Yes.
I mean, it was magical. And
Yeah.
I like that word, by the way, because it's like like it was a magical feeling. And yeah, I'm hoping to see the Cowboys have that this year.
Yes. Now, something that I'm just curious about was or is, in those first few interviews with people that are, I mean, relatively larger than life, right? I mean, to your point,
Mm.
the Derek Jeters, the, Eli Mannings, whoever it is, right? They're at the pinnacle of their career on one of the
Mhm.
best teams in their sports. And you're interviewing these folks. Is there any nerves that go into it? Is it, hey, I've interviewed some great people before. It's just another conversation. Tell me a little bit about that.
What's weird is that doesn't get me nervous.
Yeah.
Other that doesn't. Other things might. That doesn't. I think I don't know. I wonder sometimes, like someone brought this up to me recently and said maybe it's because I grew up with brothers who were at like not but like big guys. Like
Yeah.
like my little brother's 6'5" and a monster and in the best way. And so I feel like I was just around that kind of like, he's an Iron Man, like that kind of presence all the time. It's kind of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was never nerve-wracking. I remember I think the first interview I did with someone who was like a famous person was Jay Leno. I was in Monterey, California, and that was my first interview with a famous person. It was at Pebble Beach Pro Am. He was there, and I was nervous. Like I remember being so nervous, and I just remember saying to him, like, "I'm like nervous," and he's like, "You don't seem nervous," and I'm like, "No, no, I'm nervous. Like I'm nervous." Um, so yeah, so that other things will get me that kind of feeling, but I didn't experience that, which I'll have to probably look into why I don't. But that's no, I didn't feel that.
I love it. Now, as your time in New York is going well, right? You're covering some of the most prestigious teams, the most, highly anticipated athletes. An opportunity for a primetime slot comes up through maybe connections, but talk a little bit about how you get into the primetime news LA.
So it that went full circle with NBC in Los Angeles. They offered me a position to be the weekend news anchor and news reporter during the week, and then to do following the NFL on NBC, to do my segment on Primetime News LA, which was
Yeah.
interviewing the athletes and getting to know them on a different level. And that was the sweet spot in terms of like just getting to know the athletes beyond the X's and O's. Like I really felt like, oh, this is something that I really enjoy doing. And so it was really difficult to leave New York, but it was going full circle because that's where I was a page. And I would give tours on that lot. So when that opportunity came along, it was really tough to pass it up, and it was wonderful. It was a great opportunity. Really hard to leave the job I was at, but just really exciting at the same time.
Now, as you say that, I think a fear that a lot of people have is I'm going to make the wrong choice. And you've talked a lot about today, going with your gut, trusting that feeling, and just knowing it's the right choice. How do you decipher and discern the right career choice? What were some of the decision making processes that you went through? And what if, someone that's listening is going through do I do this or do I do that? And they're really stuck on which is right. What would be your encouragement to them on things that they could be contemplating to make the right choice?
I think end goal. I think end goal is a good way to think about things. Like
Yeah.
what do you want the
Mm.
end result to be? And I've certainly haven't always gotten it right. Like I wish I could speak from a position of saying that every step that I've taken has been the right move. I've learned from those though. I've made mistakes. I try not to make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
So it is sometimes when you're making a decision, you're like, okay, is this the right move? And I think the best thing, at least I try and go about it from not ever making decisions out of fear.
Yeah.
Because there's no good decision that's ever made based solely on fear.
Well, but I want to say thank you for answering the way you did, because I think there's somebody listening right now that just heard you say, even if I make the wrong choice, it could still end up really well for me.
Hmm.
Right? You said, "Hey, I've made choices that maybe it wasn't the right choice, but look at, I've still gotten to an end goal of mine, right? A pinnacle that I was hoping to get to." And I think for a lot of people, you get so caught up in, is it the right choice or is it the wrong choice? And the reality is sometimes you're deciding between a good choice and a great choice. There is no wrong choice that's being made. It may not end up being the greatest choice you could have made.
And I think you actually put that far more eloquently than I did, because that's exactly right. And I think that it's weird how sometimes things end up the way they're supposed to end up anyway.
Yeah.
And even if the decision is a little bit gets you off balance at the beginning, somehow things naturally take their natural form and the fundamentals assert themselves. I say that a lot, maybe too
Yeah.
much. The fundamentals assert themselves, and what I mean by that is exactly what you said. Things work out the way they're supposed to work out.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned it a couple times. Things came full circle at NBC. They get you back to LA. Things come full circle with CBS though. And so talk a little bit about that transition for you.
It's been I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I really didn't. And but I did know the people involved. That I knew. And so I made the decision based on that which I knew.
Yeah.
And the people involved with CBS are just good people. Besides being really good at what they do, they're good people. And it just became very clear not just what I would be doing on a daily basis, but who I'd be working with and working for. It just became a very clear that it felt right, just like, again, like, it felt right. And, and that's, yeah, again, as simple as that, it was like, oh yeah, this, and the win was sort of, I think sometimes, like, my dad says that, go where the love is and go where the wind is at your back.
Mm.
And I think those are two, again, simple ways to look at things. And it's not just one or the other. It's just go where it feels right. And this felt right and feels right. And yeah, that's a simple, maybe longer answer than you needed.
No, that's great. And so you hinted at it earlier, hey, covering the Cowboys now. So I mean, are you a little heart torn? I mean, you covered the Giants, now you've got the Cowboys. I mean, same division. Where does the allegiance lie?
I know, right? And I like, I know that. And I thought about that. I was like, wow, after covering the Giants for so many years and covering the Jet fans, don't worry, I've got love for you as well. I knew, I was like, okay, this is gonna be, and I can remember very specifically covering a playoff game, um, in Dallas, with the Cowboys against the Giants. Like, I can remember that game very clearly. And I can remember covering it at, MetLife Stadium in New York as well, a couple of years ago for Monday Night Football. So I've always said I root for the individual players. So, and I root for the people. And
Yeah.
so, so this is me being more political than,
Politically correct. That's fine. I can
right,
handle it.
right. But I can tell you, like it's one of those things where the Cowboy, I can't wait to get started and start covering the season, because I mean, the Cowboys are one of the greatest franchises in the country.
Just got valued at the greatest franchise, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And it's the highest valued sports franchise in the country, and for good reason. And for
Yeah.
good reason. Um, so it's definitely, I knew it was gonna come, and New Yorkers, I still get DMs being like, why did you leave? Like, what are you doing? Why did you leave us? Um and I think, and I get it. But I do think, it's covering the Cowboys, it's covering the Mavs, it's covering the Rangers, it's covering the Stars. It's pretty great. Some of the greatest franchises in the country here.
I'm gonna make you publicly say that you're gonna try and hook me up with Mavericks tickets sometime next year. I'm gonna come watch Luca. Just throwing it out there.
Right. If only I had that pool, right? Like, let's go. I'll speak with Mr. Cuban. Mr. Cuban,
Yeah,
hi, nice to meet you. If we could just get some tickets over here, that would be great.
deal.
I want to bring my family. I want to bring Phil, and I'll let you know.
There it is. There it is, Mark. You've been called out. You've been called out. So, uh, well, Andy, I want to say thanks for sharing. Just pivotal moments that have led to where you're at. But as you also reflect just on so much of your story, are there any other pivotal moments that really stand out of the who knew moments that have led to you being where you're at today?
I mean, I really feel like we talked a lot about it, and again, I feel like I've talked a lot about myself, which not totally my comfort zone, but you're really good at this. So I feel like this is you've made it really, really comfortable and really great, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, Annie, I'm super honored that you would, share your story and your time with us. And all I have to say is I'm excited to continue to follow your journey and, just see all the other moments that are going to lead to where you're at. And probably 3 years from now, hopefully you're not covering like the Eagles or something. I mean, goodness, then you're going to really have to battle in that division. But, we're going to have you back on and talk about all the other moments that have led to where you're at that point.
I'm in, Phil, anytime.
Awesome. Thank you.